guys, and welcome back to the Crawl Corner. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty corner for all things Formula E. So the Tokyo E-Prix has come to a close, and it was a good race, wasn't it? A really enjoyable one once again. Two exciting Formula E races back to back. This circuit was a little bit more tight and twisted than the others we've been to, which meant overtaking was a little bit more difficult than previous rounds and races. But having said that, it was the first time we'd ever raced in Japan and Tokyo and around that track, of course. So it meant that there was quite a few surprises in qualifying with some real underdog teams that you didn't expect to get into the duels, getting all the way into the final in some situations and into the semi-finals as well. So that was really encouraging to see, and it meant that some of the underdogs scored some great results come the end of the race as well. So overall, some great racing, the cream rises to the top. And yes, we're going to get into it right now. So if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers have a maximum of 10 points based on their race weekend's performance, and I go all the way down to 0 if they have a particularly bad one. Take a look out for bonus points though. They're sometimes an offer some drivers to do something extra special during a race, and on the rare occasion I do award minus points to those drivers to do something extra special, but for all the wrong reasons. Let's take a look at the current Crawl Corner standings then going into this episode. It's on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is, and based on how they went on this weekend, can you see them going up? Can you see them going down? What sort of score do you expect me to give them? Based on what happened in qualifying, the race, and in free practice, of course. So let's kick things off with the race winner then, shall we? Max Gunter. Maxi Gunter, what a fantastic effort he is putting in this season. Not just this race, but this season as a whole. It has been incredible by him. He is, of course, the main point scorer, the only point scorer so far for that Maserati squad. And he's just been doing such a great job, hasn't he? It's like the way he ended last season was how he's carried his momentum going into this season. He's not the shunt monster that he was at the start of last season. That seems to have fallen by the wayside now. He's gone and left that person behind, and he is just a real consistent, hard charger, great fair overtaker, fantastic defensive driver. He is an all-round package, isn't he, Maxi Gunter? He really is. Missing out on pole by just a couple of hundredths of a second in that final duel there against Ollie Rowland in the Nissan, and was quite happy to sit in second place, of course, benefiting from the toe and the hole that Ollie Rowland was punching into the air as well. But it didn't make that much of a difference this time around, but it did make enough of a difference that he was able to mount an attack towards the end of the race. Ollie Rowland had to lift and coast a lot earlier, so Ollie initially went for a defensive line going into the fast chicane, and Gunter was like, yeah, I'll just brake a lot later, thanks mate, cheers, and just drove straight past him. Throughout the rest of the race though, he was quite happily sat in second. I think he dropped down to third briefly with the likes of Jake Dennis and Eduaro Mortara not quite taking attack mode at the same time, but once they did, it all shuffled back round again, and he was back in second again. So that is pretty much how his race went. He started the race second, he was in second, he stayed in second, and then right when it mattered, he managed to get that little bit of energy percentage over Ollie Rowland to mount an attack. Ollie Rowland had no choice but to lift and coast and pretty much gave it to Gunter. And then Ollie Rowland was coming back. He'd saved the energy he needed to save, tried to attack on the last lap, but it wasn't enough. Gunter was able to put up a stunning defence and cross the line to secure victory. And not just that, he got fastest lap as well, so he got an extra point to his tally. So he scored 26 points this race weekend overall. What a stunning effort by Maxi Gunter, and it can be no less than 10 points for that, can it? A perfect end to Maxi Gunter. What a great start. A debut weekend, of course, at Tokyo. As mentioned, it levels the playing field somewhat, but there's, as mentioned already, the cream rises to the top. Maxi Gunter has been fantastic this season. His charge through the pack just a couple of weeks ago in Sao Paulo was stunning. I think we've had one mediocre race from him where he finished 9th, where he could have maybe got a little bit more out of it, but the rest of this season has been absolutely sublime. But a mediocre race, and he's still picking up points in Formula E. That's the level of consistency you need to be a champion in Formula E. And is he looking like a champion? At the moment, I would say so. One of the most consistent drivers out there. A perfect 10 to Maxi Gunter. And then we come to Oliver Rowland in the mighty Nissan. What a fantastic, fantastic run of form Ollie Rowland is having. This new and rejuvenated character of Oliver Rowland is doing an impeccable job, isn't it? He really, really is. Pole position, as mentioned, just nabbed it away from Maxi Gunter in that final duel for that pole position, securing himself 3 points there as we got underway. And as mentioned in the race, he was quite happy to lead. I think at certain points they tried to take attack mode and, get in the gaggle a little bit and was like, oh, should we maybe? But they decided to go for the track position over let's go further back and then try and fight his way back through due to how difficult it was to overtake round this circuit. That being said, though, Ollie Rowland did all he could. He had a great car, admittedly, and he was happy to take the track position. It was a risk that happens in Formula E. Even when the energy percentages weren't as crucial to be punching the hole in the air as it was at such as like Sao Paulo, it still makes a difference. But they were happy, let's go with track position, and they did just that. But unfortunately, at some point in that race, towards the end, they had to say, look, we need to save energy here, and they made the tactical decision, I feel, that Ollie Rowland sort of gave it to Maxi Gunter to hopefully then build his energy back up and then go for a late charge. But the late charge came on the final lap, but just couldn't find a way around him. So, Ollie Rowland, though, is another perfect 10, isn't it? 3 podiums in a row, and from where he was last season, whether it was mutual or not, getting dumped or he dumped the team, I don't know what happened at Mahindra. You're never going to find out the full details, are you? But, yeah, whatever happened, he left, didn't he? Mahindra, he was a broken man, picked up virtually no points, silly accidents, silly incidents. The car was miles off the pace, as we know. And then comes into Nissan, revitalised. Fantastic. 3 podiums in a row. That is unbelievable. So, yeah, again, Ollie Rowland, cream rising to the top. He's a fantastic driver. He's proved his worth now that he belongs in Formula E and does a stunning job with it. It's no less than 10 points to me. He picks up 21 points, of course, 18 points for second place, and the 3 points he collected for pole. A great effort. Fantastic effort. Well done, Ollie Rowland. Bravo, my friend. That's a perfect 10 to you. Securing third place and another podium position, it is Jake Dennis in the Andretti. Good seeing him back in the podium places once again. He had quite an advantage of percentage-wise towards that final lap. I think he had a whole % more than the car ahead. And he said, I was quite willing to go for it, but then at the same time, in the back of my mind, I thought, no, I could do with these 15 points. I've not been doing great lately. I've not had a good run of form. It's just been the odd point here and there. Lost out on a podium just a couple of races ago, of course, where he got nabbed at the line by Ollie Rowland and by Pascal Wehrlein. So he didn't want to repeat that fortune again of going for a move that was over-audacious, over-ambitious, and losing out. And he didn't want to get stuffed in the wall. As a lot of drivers mentioned, actually, in the briefings afterwards, that they were quite having to consolidate what position they had if they were inside the points on that final lap, because they said, it's a long way to fly to just stick it in the wall on the last lap and come away with nothing at all. And I thought, you know what? You're quite right. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with that statement. And Jake Dennis made that statement as well. So for Jake Dennis this weekend, overall, it was a great drive. I think he got 5th in qualifying, didn't he? So made a little bit of ground there. Although there were 2 underdog vehicles ahead of him that sort of like struggling to manage their energy as it was. But nonetheless, can't take that away from him. It's going to be 9 points for me for Jake Dennis. Fantastic effort. Great podium. Enjoyed that podium. Nice to see. Just some real good drivers at the moment doing well and securing big points for their team's drivers' championships as well. And we'll see what happens come the end. But you've got to think at the minute, those top 3... Maybe Rowland I'm unsure of with that Nissan car because it can be quite erratic at times and it might fall off the pace just randomly at a race weekend. But at the moment, the way it's going for those 3 drivers, you're going to have to say those are title contenders along with the likes of the Jaguars, the Porsches. So, yeah, it could certainly throw up a few surprises as the season progresses. But right now, those 3 drivers that finished on the podium here today are championship protagonists, I would say. And it'll be interesting to see how the season plays out. But for now, it's 9 points to Jake Dennis for yet another podium in his Formula E career. Just outside the points, finishing in 4th place, it's Antonio Felix da Costa. Fantastic to see him doing so well again, isn't it? After this long gap, this extended break that they had before they started racing again in Sao Paulo just a few weeks ago. It's been nice to see him come back, revitalise. He scored points last time out. Here he is securing P4 on the fringes of a podium, finished ahead of his teammate as well, and played a great team game. Let's not forget that either. As Pascal Wehrlein was ahead of him at the... during the attack mode zones, so it was Pascal Wehrlein. So as Pascal went for the attack mode round turn 4, da Costa just lifted off, let everyone else stack up behind him, and Wehrlein came out without losing any positions. That was a nice little tactical manoeuvre there, made by more teams. Jake Dennis was benefited by his teammate Norman Natto as well during the race as well. And it's nice when the cars are that close together, it's the kind of tactic you can play off and work into your advantage. So well done to Porsche for that. Loving the pink livery, by the way, as well. And while we're mentioning liveries, the Nissan with the mighty blossom leaf motif on it as well was stunning. So yeah, the two special Japan liveries certainly popped in colour, shall we say. But yeah, loving the Porsche. The pink Porsche was fantastic, wasn't it? But yeah, da Costa, the pink certainly brought him luck, didn't it? Pink to make the boys wink. Well, I'm sure that da Costa was winking after that one. Very, very happy with that P4 finish. Well done to him for that. It's going to be 8.5 for me. I think he drove a great race there. As mentioned, okay qualifying, solid enough. No errors, no dramas. The race itself played a good team game, strategic game there with Wehrlein. Came out the main beneficiary of it all with a 4th place finish. Well done, Antonio. Well deserved, well needed as well. 8.5 to him. And already mentioned, we have, of course, Pascal Wehrlein finishing in P5, picking up 10 points for his championship campaign. The Porsche team are solid this weekend, it must be said. Maybe they were hoping for more. I think every, especially the Jaguars and the Porsche teams would have been looking at that going, we need podiums out of this, and for him not to get it, either of them, will be disappointing, but the Porsche team will certainly be leaving a lot happier than the Jaguar squad, who we'll come to shortly. But overall, for Pascal Wehrlein, as mentioned, benefited from his teammate being around him, able to help each other and assist each other with the attack modes to mitigate the damage of that and not lose the time. Just drove great. Solid effort, well deserved, 10 points picked up, 5, it's only 5 points lost to Jake Dennis. His main championship protagonists at the moment are sort of all over the place. We don't really know where to look, do we, in the championship at the moment? But realistic, we've got 6 or 7 cars that are fighting for it. The Envision seem to be nowhere these last few races either, so it's difficult to predict, as Formula E already is. But last year we saw a pattern, but this year it's all over the place. But for Pascal Wehrlein finishing P5, a solid effort, good race. Not really much to talk about it, just solid overall. It's 8 points. 8 points to Pascal Wehrlein. A solid effort from him. A great overall weekend by Porsche. Securing 6th place, we come to Norman Natto in the Andretti. Or do we? He's got a 5-second time penalty. No, we're bringing... Is it? Is he in? Is he out? Is he in? He is finishing 6th, yeah. Got a 5-second time penalty in the race for contact with Robin Frijns, which took his front wing off. And they gave Natto a 5-second time penalty for that. And then after the checkered flag, they reverted their decision and took the 5 seconds off him. So instead of finishing P16, he finished P6. So that was good for Norman Natto, of course, because he needed the points. He had an absolutely dismal race in, of course, Sao Paulo. He wasn't even in the points at any point all that race, was he? He was absolutely terrible. But here, able to play the team game because he was up there in and around Jake Dennis, again doing the bunching effect, so Jake could take attack mode, not lose any positions, just lose a bit of time and then catch it back up again. So it worked out fine. And then, of course, this 5-second time penalty really did ruin it because he crossed the line in P7, of course demoted outside the points then with the 5-second time penalty, but then reinstated back into 6th because of Eduaro Mortara's subsequent disqualification for power overuse, which we'll come to towards the end of the video. But for Norman Natto overall this weekend, it's been okay, hasn't it? It's been solid. It was nice to see him up there fighting with Jake and having the advantage over Jake at times as well. He was ahead of him briefly, but the team game worked out that Jake got the podium. Natto ended up securing some points after the 5-second time penalty was reversed. So for Norman Natto, he's going to get a solid 7. Solid 7 from me for Norman Natto. I don't think you can do much more than that. It was okay, it was good, it was decent. Certainly deserves a score, and yeah, I don't know if he was lucky or not with the 5-second getting reversed. I thought it was a harsh 5 seconds to start with, but It's very rare you see a time penalty reversed after the flag, so an interesting one there, but nonetheless, 7 to Norman Natto. Solid weekend for Andretti. Good to see both cars inside the points once again, and Norman Natto adding some much needed points to his tally so far, and adding it to the Andretti squad as well for the team's championship. So well done, Norman. 7 to you. Securing 7th place and a solid, crucial 6 points, we come to Niko Muller in the Apt. What a fantastic weekend Niko Muller has had. Qualified in 7th, finished in 7th. Sort of briefly got around the 10th, 11th area, didn't he, after the attack modes had played out and things like that, but then trouble ahead for other cars, disqualification for Eduaro Mortara. It meant that he ended up staying in that 7th place overall, and a fantastic effort by him. He didn't put a wheel wrong at all this race. In fact, he was a bit lonely. I didn't actually see that much of him in the race because he wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just quite happily sat in the gaggle like, yeah, I'm inside the points, I'm happy, I'm comfortable. And then P7 came to him at the end there as well. So it was a fantastic effort by Niko Muller to stay inside the points, stay inside the gaggle, and stay inside the fight. Because, as we know, with these Mahindra powertrains, they're a little bit over-consuming. They like to use their energy, they use the juice up quite a lot. But that being said, you know, Niko Muller didn't put a wheel wrong, did he? He really didn't. A great qualifying to get into the duels, starting himself in P7, and obviously a fantastic race to finish the race in P7. 6 points, that takes him ahead, of course, of Mahindra now, who are still yet to score, and takes him above ERT as well by 3 crucial points, because these points aren't going to come often, but with it being a new circuit, as mentioned, it mitigates the data that the teams have. It kind of just throws things out of balance a little bit there, and it means that these underdog teams can get inside those points and just chip away. Niko Muller was able to do that with a stunning drive this weekend overall. Really got the maximum out of the car that he could, and it's a perfect 10 for that. Perfect 10. Best we've seen of that for quite some time, it must be said. Towards the end of last season, they were looking like they were on the tail of the top end of the top 10, but now, as the start of this season, they were looking like they were nowhere near. P7, getting themselves elevated up the standings in the team's championship overall. A perfect 10 for Niko Muller for that. Great job. 8th place, we come to Nick Cassidy in the Jaguar. Yeah, not the weekend he would have wanted, would he? But still made some fantastic progress up the field to end up finishing here inside the point. Starting the race in 19th place on a circuit that's so difficult to overtake. Picking up 4 points, you're going to come out of the weekend thinking, okay, well, at least it's something, isn't it? It's something. It's 4 points there that realistically, after qualifying 19th, he wasn't going to get, was he? But he did. He did the job. The team did the job. Everything worked out well for him. Again, it was difficult to see what was happening there because he was the only one making progress, but we didn't really see how he made the progress. It just sort of all happened. But of course, the massive advantage that these Jaguars have is the fact that they have the great advantage of the powertrains. You know, the energy efficiency that comes with those cars. So obviously, meant that he could maybe scrape round a few cars that were lifting and coasting, a bit like the Max Gunter move that we saw on Ollie Rowland for the lead. There could have been cars further down the field doing that at an earlier stage, so he just drove past them that way. You know, he made a great effort to get up here. So overall for Nick Cassidy, I have awarded him a solid 7. That's probably generous by a point based on where he started, but I think to get points out of that weekend after starting so low down at a circuit that was clearly so difficult to overtake, I think it's fair game. I think it's a fair effort, that, and he does need noting for that. These 4 crucial points come the end of the season, you know, could make all the difference. It's frustrating he wasn't higher up the field, admittedly, because he should have been, but he wasn't. But at least he got something out of the weekend. That's all I'm going to say. A solid 7 to Nick Cassidy. 9th place, we come to Robin Frijns in the Envision. As mentioned, he had a little tup and a tangle with Norman Natto in the Andretti. Trying to go around the outside of him after Natto took the attack mode. Natto sort of like opened the corner up as he was about to go right, so he turned left and then went right. Had a bit of contact, front wheel onto front wing contact, lifted Frijns airborne briefly and ripped his front wing off entirely, but was able to continue, didn't need to pit for the wing, but wasn't very happy and lost himself a few positions there. It'd have been finishing up there where Natto was had it not been for that incident, and ended up crossing the line in P9. But after qualifying where neither of the Envisions get into the duels, it's frustrating, isn't it? What has happened to this Envision squad that I was highly rating going into this season? I was expecting big things from them. I was expecting, you know, regular top 5 finishes, both drivers, regular podiums, the odd win. we've not seen anything of the sort at the moment from him, have we? It really has been a fall from grace for both drivers. P9, okay, it's points again, as mentioned, a bit like Nick Cassidy. At least he's got something out of the weekend, but it should be a lot more, and yet he was unlucky with the collision with Natto, as mentioned. Without that, he'd have been P6, P7, somewhere around that area. But as it stands, he's P9. Did okay to recover and not have to pit for the wing and not sustain more damage. So that's good in that respect. But overall, for Robin Frijns, it's nothing special or impressive, is it? So for that reason, it's going to be 6.5 for me. For Robin Frijns, I think he's done an okay job, picked up a couple of points, but it should have been a hell of a lot more, I think. I don't know what's happening with the Envision squad. They were very lonely in Sao Paulo, and here again, they're lucky just to collect a couple of points. 6.5 to Robin Frijns. Securing the final points paying position, we come to Sergio Sette Camera in the ERT. Yes, well done to Sette Camera after qualifying himself in P4. It was unlucky, wasn't he, in that final duel that he took part in. He tagged the wall coming out of turn 2, the big dipper drop, really, isn't it? It's like a woof, get down. And as he bounced on landing, it got the rear end kicked out. He tagged the wall and broke his top wishbone, or bent his top wishbone, and it meant that the car was crabbing, so he was unable to beat the car he was up against, which was Max Gunter anyway. So I think he'd have been highly unlikely that he'd have beaten him, but nonetheless he could have given it more of a go than he did. Ended up a couple of seconds behind him in the duels, which is fair enough. I mean, he's got a broken car at that point, but he gave it a go, and I appreciate that. And it was great to see an ERT into the duels, but not just that, knocking some good names out as well to get to where he got to. A good effort, great effort. He deserved that. So lining up P4. He stayed inside the top 6 throughout most of the race, but then as the efficiency sort of waned with the ERT like we know it does, and going for the attack mode at the wrong time, not having a teammate to hold the others up, etc., like we've seen with the other cars as mentioned ahead, it meant that he lost a few places in that, and then he was just clinging on to the final points paying positions as the race unfolded and as it progressed. He was, of course, lucky with the disqualification of Eduaro Mortara, because obviously with the reinstation of Norman Natto, it dropped him outside the points to 11th, but then we got the disqualification for Mortara for overuse, which meant he got a point. So the ERT, I think he's done the best job he can with the car he's got there. Would have been nicer to see him just inside the points and didn't need to rely on a disqualification or but the way it was and the way it worked out, that's how it was. He did cross the line in P10, of course, but yeah, he did a great job, I think. He really did set a camera with what happened. As mentioned, the ERT not got the most efficient car on the grid, but he was able to claim a point after a strong starting position. That's the only way that they're going to get him. If they're higher up the order, they can sort of dictate the pace a little bit more and maybe just scrape a point on that final lap as they tumble down the order inevitably in the latter stages. So, yeah, for me personally, Sergio Sette Camera, a good job had by all, an all-round good effort by him, and it's going to be 9 points for me. I don't think I can really fault him that much at all. He did what he could with the car he had. Really impressive drive. Just a little bit of a shame in qualifying he bent the car slightly, but I don't hold that against him at all. And he has been the main saving grace of ERT this year, considering last year I was thinking, oh, do we really need him? Looks like we do. It really does look like we do, because the other driver's not doing much at the moment, is he? But well done to Sergio Sette Camera for that. Solid 9 points to him for that. Great effort all weekend overall. And thoroughly deserving of yet another points finish for the ERT squad. Then we come to the driver just finishing outside the points, and it is Sasha Fenestraz in the other Nissan. Oh no, what's happening to Sasha? What is happening to Sasha? It's a shame, isn't it? Qualifying himself down in P20 or something. He was anywhere near the duels, unfortunately. Difficult run of form he's having at the moment, isn't it? And then in the race itself, was able to elevate himself up to P11. Looked like it was going to be P10 after Mortara's disqualification. But then the reinstation, of course, of Norman Natto meant he was back outside the points again with P11. So, yeah, unlucky in that respect. I don't want to give him a lottery of the week. Because I think that'd be a little bit harsh on him, but I am looking at him now thinking, yeah, he's been under-delivering for the last couple of races, not just this one now. But Nissan's home Grand Prix, I don't want to be too harsh on him, so I've given him a solitary 1. I think that's all he really deserves. Again, good ground though, good positions gained from where he qualified, but not inside the points, and it's frustrating when your teammates had a run of 3 podiums. Has he even picked up any points in those 3 races? Maybe he did in the first one, but I know the last couple he certainly hasn't, has he? So yeah, difficult to call Sasha at the moment. But at the moment, it's just a solitary one for him. It's a shame that he missed out on points, but I hope he finds his form again. Because he was a great little driver last year, and the car has clearly got the capabilities now. So more luck coming, maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, and a little bit more pace, and he'll be on form with Roland, and that would be great to see both Nissans up there, wouldn't it? But for now, a solitary one to Sasha Fenestraz, a difficult day. In 12th place, we come to JeanEric Vergne in the first of the DS Penske's. They had no pace at all this weekend, did they really? Didn't make it into the duels, didn't make it anywhere. Just mizzled around the mid-grid, and Vergne once again was the best of those two drivers, but nothing really showing at all. You know, it was really, really weird. Really, really weird. Yeah, I don't know. They've got the same Stellantis powertrain that the Maserati has, and look at what Gunter's doing, and neither of the DS Penske drivers have been anywhere near close to what Gunter's able to do at the moment. So it's a difficult one, isn't it? You have to base it on a team individual basis, but at the same time you think powertrain, well, we got the same as that one, and that's doing a lot better in the Maserati. Yeah, overall for Vergne, it's a middle of the road 5 for me. Very difficult to judge. Nowhere near the pace. Didn't see him inside the top 10 at all. But again, didn't see him in trouble or any problems. Just clearly a difficult one again for the team. But when's it going to get better for him? I don't know. It's a shame. I always feel there should be more coming out of this DS Penske squad. I really do. But we have to remember just a couple of years ago, it was DS Dragon, and they were tumbling around at the back of the grid, bumbling around, getting lapped and things. So, you know, from where they were just a couple of seasons ago, at the end of the Gen 2 era, they have made great gains. The fact that we're disappointed with the P12 finish now, but then when you think of the drivers they've got, the investment they've got from the DS squad now, and the Penske, you know, it should be more. But for now, middle of the road 5 to JeanEric Vergne for that. Just very, very average. And next up, it is Sebastian Buemi, finishing in an unlucky for some P13. Unlucky for Sebastian Buemi? I don't know. I don't really know, to be honest. He qualified himself down in 21st on merit, and here he is finishing in P13 outside the points. Kind of damage done at the start of the weekend, really, isn't it, with the pole qualifying? Especially when it's so tight and twisted to overtake. You know, I don't know. I really don't know what to do with these Envisions at the moment, because they appear to be lacking something, and for both drivers to be off the pace seems unusual. But at the same time, there's other teams doing a lot more. I mean, you look at the Apps with Muller this time around, and Sete Camera able to secure a point, and the Envisions aren't as slow as those guys, and certainly have more efficiency than those guys as well. So, yeah, it's a difficult one to judge, isn't it? But I've just given him a 3 for now for Sebastian Buemi. A tough one to call, but again, obviously, far from impressive considering the others that are ahead of him. Yeah, I think that's as much as I can give him, Buemi. A middle of the road, well, middle of the road. It's just 3 to Sebastian Buemi. Yeah, tough one overall for him this weekend. It must be said. And then finishing in 14th place, we come to Jake Hughes in the McLaren. Yet another race without points for Jake. Shame, coming off the back of a difficult Brazil round. Comes here, hopeful for a little bit more, I'm sure, after Bird got the win. Didn't get into the duels, but he was in and around an area that points would have been possible. But unfortunately, in the early stages of the race, he got biffed off by Lucas Degrassi. Not Jake's fault at all. Lucky he could engage reverse and get out. Had to have a pit stop to check the car over because he thought he got suspension damage. They elected to leave the wing off, though, because it had lost too much time behind safety car. I think by the time he'd already got recovered out the wall, he was like 3/4 of a lap behind, and then when he was like, I need to pit, they were like, well, let's not do the wing because we're going to go a lap down, and that's his race totally over. So they elected just to check the car over, make sure the suspension was okay, send him out again, and he was able to elevate himself up to P14. So in some respects, a good race in that sense, a good recovery from down last and out effectively to getting into P14. Has to be commended for that effort, but unfortunately for Jake, it's just not going well at the moment, is it? Maybe could have scraped a point or two with the disqualification of Mortara and things like that. Maybe could have been up there and, you know, nabbed Sete Camera's point off him as he was struggling with energy at the end. Something like that. I think he was in that area to pick up a point or two, but as it was, unfortunately, with the damage sustained and being in the wall, a good recovery to P14, but it's just going to be 3 points to Jake this time around, unfortunately. There wasn't much more he could have done. It would just been nice to see him further up the field. I think that McLaren still got the pace of the duels, but something just didn't quite gel this weekend with the McLaren. And yeah, 3 points to Jake Hughes. Finishing in 15th place, we then come to Mitch Evans in the Jaguar. And there we have it, a lotterer of the week to Mitch Evans. I didn't think I'd be giving him one of those this season, I've got to be honest, but it just went wrong again, didn't it? His own mistake. Came out of the attack mode, was eager, of course, not to lose positions and places. Tried to stick it up the inside of one car, locked his rear brakes off, then ploughed into the side of, was it Niko Muller at that point? Was it an Apt? Was it an Envision? Can't remember, but either way, he stuffed into the side of someone, ripped his front wing off, it got stuck underneath the car. That was him out the race. So that was a shame. But yeah, does earn a lottery of the week for that, because points would have been possible for him. Maybe finishing around where Cassidy was would have been difficult to see. Maybe a little bit higher up than that, actually. Maybe where Natto ended up in the race. He should have been around the top 5, I think. He got into the duels, but then was eliminated first time out, so that was a shame. But nonetheless, got yourself in a good starting position. Inside the top 10 is crucial. Yeah, should have been a top 5 out of this weekend, but blew it. All his own mistake and blew it. So yeah, it's a lottery of the week for him. There's not much more to say about his race. It was over from that point on. Able to resume in the race as well, but finishing P15, nowhere near the points, after an error caused all by himself. Lotterer of the week to Mitch Evans. Next up, we come to Stoffel Vandor in the second of the DS Penske's, and what's already been said with JeanEric Vergne, I'm not going to repeat myself or say it again, but DS Penske just really aren't anywhere at the moment. But once again, it's JeanEric Vergne getting the better out of the car, even when it's not points. We're talking about Stoffel Vandor here, finishing P16 behind 2 cars that had damage and had to make pit stops. Shouldn't happen, should it, really? It shouldn't happen. So for that reason, it's 2 points to Stoffel Vandor, and he's getting that just because of the lack of the pace of the Penske at the moment. If JeanEric Vergne can't get it into the points, I don't think Vandor can either. But that being said, he should be closer to his teammate, and he just isn't at the moment. It's not lottery worthy, but it's certainly one to be concerned about. If Vergne was inside the points all the time, and you've got Vandor outside of him, you know, then of course questions have to be asked. But when he's got a lack of pace, but it's still for no points, it doesn't really matter, does it? So yeah, it's 2 points to Vandor for that at the moment. We'll be keeping a close eye on him at the moment, because he's just not gelling at all with that DS Penske squad, is he? We saw him have a couple of ups and downs last season, but he had some okay results as the season went on. This time around, it's still JeanEric Vergne, firmly the number 1 within that squad, and yeah, still struggling. 2 to Vandor. Then we come to Darl Val in the second of the Maseratis. His teammates up there winning it. He's down here finishing well outside the points, finishing P17. It's a shame, isn't it? It really is a shame, because, you know, I think the advantage, of course, of that Maserati with Gunter in here at the moment is sublime. Gunter's doing a stunning job. And I think that's kind of embarrassing Jahan more than it really should, because I think that Maserati's not necessarily as good as what Gunter's making out it can be. You know, I think he's really delivering something extra special out of that car. And then you've got Darl Val, the only official rookie on the grid this season. Only a few races into his Formula E career, and we're expecting something from him, but we've not seen much of him these last couple of races. I don't think we've seen any kind of progress from him. The first few races this season, we could say, oh look, but this happened. Oh, it didn't quite work out, but this happened. Whereas these last couple of races since that extended break because of the Hyderabad cancellation, we've not seen anything of him at all, and nothing to really note down as like, oh, okay, it didn't work out, but at the moment it's just not working out for him, is it? There's something obviously not gelling at the moment. Maybe the extended break didn't help him at all. Maybe, you know, the simulator things and simulator work's just confused him more than it has helped him. I don't want to be overly critical or overly harsh, because I can't imagine what it's like to be the only rookie on a grid in a Gen 3 era, which are already described by the experienced drivers in the sport that they're the most difficult Formula E car they've ever driven. But at the same time, it's still not good, is it? You know, so just basing him on his own individual basis here and taking his teammate out of it, we haven't seen the progress that we saw in the early few races that we have these last couple. You know, it seems to be very much is at the back, you know, whereas the other few races he was getting a little bit more stuck in as the races went on. But as mentioned, since that extended break, he's kind of dropped form again. So with them coming thick and fast now, we've got another one in a couple of weeks' time again, haven't we? Then we've got a double-header coming. So there's opportunities now for him to get into a rhythm because the races are coming a bit more thick and fast. We need to see progress, we really do. I think Maserati do as well. But I like Jehan. You know, he's always had Formula E as a main target, hasn't he, in Formula 2. He knew that F1 was unlikely. He didn't want to go over to America. He wanted to do a world stage sort of sport. And he thought Formula E would be perfectly for him. And he's noted that for ages. He's done a couple of tests with Mahindra in the Gen 2 era before signing for Maserati this time around. So, you know, he clearly wants to make this his career out of it, and I really hope he makes it a success. But these last couple of races, it's just been tough because there's, from our side anyway, as a viewer, we've not seen any progress, and that's a little bit of a shame. So yeah, 2 points to Jehan Darl Val. Really hope he gets his ideas and gets his act together for the coming races, because it would be good to see him getting stuck in again like he did in Diriyah. You know, even if it doesn't work out, I just hope he can get a good fight and get a good result in. And I hope points can come soon for him as well, because I think that'll be a next big tick for him into progressing his career. But for now, it's just 2 points after a difficult Tokyo. Finishing behind Jehan Darl Val, we have the second of the ERTs in Dan Tintum. And there we have it, I'm afraid. It is Lotterer of the Week to Dan Tintum. His teammates up there scoring the points once again, getting inside the duels, having a stunning qualifying effort. Dan Tintum nowhere. Nowhere at all, unfortunately, this race once again. What a shame. I don't know where it's all gone wrong. Compare this to last year. I know the car's not as good, so I'm not expecting him to get the points that they did last year. But you look at it, and you think, what the hell's happened? It's a turnaround in fortune. The drives that Sete Camera's putting in at the moment are the drives we saw Dan Tintum doing last year. It's almost like they've just swapped helmets round, and it really is Sete Camera in this car, and it is Dan Tintum up there, but he's just trying to make the Brazilian look a bit better. It's how it looks from an outsider. It really is. Dan Tintum last season put some mega drives in with that Neo, and then this season, it's been nothing but just unfortunate stuff. You know, really bizarre. I can't put my finger on where it's gone wrong because, you know, yeah, we know the ERT struggling. It struggles with its management. It struggles with its power. It's requiring major investment in that team, which is why I'm maybe convinced that Lola are going to go there. They're going to join forces there. But I don't know. You know, I really don't know at the moment. But that's my hint at the moment. Anyway, if Lola's not coming in as a full manufacturer and another entry, I don't think it is it? It's coming to take over another team. So if the ERT gets the investment in and it gets with Lola, I've got a funny feeling Dan Tintum's really going to want that job. But at the moment, he's not doing anything to prove it, is he? So, yeah, it's an interesting one with Dan Tintum. I mean, you know, we know the car's not capable of doing it, but, you know, Sete Camera's doing above and beyond in it, and that's what Tintum needs to do, and he's just not at the moment. He's getting himself silly incidents like at Diriyah, knocking his front wing off at the start, you know, and then just a lack of pace. Just a total lack of pace. So, yeah, unfortunately for Dan Tintum, it is a Lotterer of the Week to him. His second of the season, I think this is as well. So I think he's the first one to get 2. Not good. Not good. But, yeah, Dan Tintum, Lotterer of the Week. Finishing in last place, although he did pull into the pits, but he still gets classified as a finisher, is Sam Bird. Oh, dear. Talk about a turnaround in fortune. My, oh, my, what went wrong there? So qualifying was just all much of a muchness, wasn't it? He kept making mistakes, kept aborting laps, didn't actually get a decent lap in, did he? And ended up qualifying himself stone dead last. On the radio it was interesting because he made a mistake on his final push lap, went down the escape road at the second to last corner, and then his team engineer came over the radio and was like, I won't go into full detail yet, but I got it wrong and I'm really sorry. And I thought, well, what the hell have you got wrong? What have you got wrong? Like, I don't know. I don't really know what could have happened, because even if the setup wasn't quite right, surely Bird should have got something out of that car. You know, and got a lap together at least. I mean, I think his best lap was something ridiculous like 1.5 seconds off the fastest time in that session, which ultimately meant he was last, you know. Yeah, very strange. Very, very strange indeed. So I don't know. I really don't know. But what a misfortune for Bird. And then, as mentioned, the race itself, he was just last all race. He didn't make any progress whatsoever. And then came into the pits on the last lap and sort of retired. But he gets classified anyway as a lap down. But yeah, Sam Bird, 1 point. He's getting 1 point. I can't do any more than that. I'm intrigued as to what the issue could be in that qualifying, because obviously that stunted his efforts in the race anyway, but saw nothing from him at all in the race apart from pooling round in last. Weird one. But yeah, 1 point to Sam Bird. Then we come to the official list of retirements. The first in the race, the last on this list, is of course Lucas Degrassi. And there we have it, a Lotterer of the Week to Lucas Degrassi, who should have got one last time out in Sao Paulo. But I put this video out on a Monday, as you know. The next day, after I'd already recorded, edited and uploaded this video, I blamed the two Mahindras for getting into a tangle with each other, if you can remember. And I was very harsh on both drivers, critical of both drivers, but I couldn't work out which driver was to blame, because we didn't see footage. We saw footage in the team radio video where Lucas Degrassi shoved it up the inside of Mortara and ascended De Vries at the same time. So it was actually Lucas Degrassi that took both Mahindras outside of points contention in that race, and he made contact with other cars as well in that race. So yeah, he was lucky to escape a Lotterer, but he doesn't escape one this race because he punted Jake Hughes off, and then in an unseen incident on the cameras once again, which no doubt we'll see tomorrow. If you're watching this on the Monday, you'll see it on the Tuesday on the team radio video again, where we'll find extra footage. We'll probably see him taking out Nick De Vries because they got into a tangle with each other. Nick De Vries and Lucas Degrassi, and both cars dragged it to the pits and retired on the spot. So yeah, I am blaming him for the Jake Hughes incident that we did see on camera, and I will be blaming him for the De Vries shunt that we didn't see on camera, based on the fact that he took the two Mahindras out in Sao Paulo, and that was not acceptable. So I'm going to say that based on no footage at all, no evidence at all, Lucas Degrassi got overambitious and wiped out the Mahindra again. That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to put my neck on the line. I'll see how right or wrong I am, no doubt, tomorrow or in a couple of days' time when we get the team radio video up from the Formula E lot. But yeah, for now, it's a Lotterer of the Week to Lucas Degrassi. His teammate scored points now and got into the duels. Where's Degrassi? Down at the back still. I think we could be seeing, end of this season, Lucas Degrassi retiring from the sport, because there's clearly not the Lucas Degrassi that we're used to seeing now. We're used to seeing him put in some great drives, great defensive manoeuvres, great late lunges, but they come off clean. Whereas now he just seems to be ramming into everyone in frustration that he's not higher up the field, and costing his team damage and points, and costing others rivals points and opportunities to score him as well. So yeah, Lucas Degrassi, Lotterer of the Week. As mentioned, of course, finishing just behind Lucas Degrassi, although they retired on the same lap, it is Nick De Vries in the Mahindra. I'm going to award him out of a maximum of 5 that I can score retirements. He's going to get 3 this weekend. Of course, he wasn't as impressive as his teammate Mortara for getting into the duels and having a great qualifying, but he did get himself P12 and was running round that area. So again, with what happened up front with the disqualification of Mortara, he could have maybe looked into a point or two and, you know, got a point there, you know. So it's frustrating once again for Mahindra. There was opportunities to score points once again this race, which is encouraging. You know, these last 2 races after the big break that they had, 2 races now down and 2 races where both cars had opportunities for points. And for whatever reason, it hasn't worked out. But that's more encouraging than the first few races we had, where they were just at the back and doing nothing at all. So yeah, for Nick De Vries, it's 3 points to me out of a maximum of 5 I can score a retirement. Again, he seems to be off his pace compared to his teammate, but he is still a relative rookie to the Gen 3 era. Even if he's a Formula E champion, it's still his first season in the Gen 3 era, still adapting to the car somewhat, but he does seem to be finding his feet now, and we are seeing pace and progress for him, so we need to make sure that this progress continues to happen, and I think Mahindra will be on points very soon, very, very soon. But for now, 3 points to De Vries, another frustrating way to end his race weekend with contact and damage, when he could have maybe scraped a point or 2. And last but by no means least, after crossing the line in P6, we unfortunately come to the disqualified Eduaro Mortara. What a shame, what a shame. It turns out it was a software issue on the final lap that meant he massively overconsumed, because I was very confused as to what actually happened, but I read the Mahindra debrief, because I was really interested, because I wanted to know what happened between De Vries and Degrassi, but they didn't go into detail with that. They just said an on-track collision with a fellow competitor. So you don't know if that puts the blame on De Vries or not. You know, it's one of those weird ones, isn't it? Like, oh, he was fighting at school with another student. Like, they won't tell you what student it is, but you know who full well it were. You know, so it's one of those, isn't it? But yeah, so I was hoping to find out that, and then in the release of the statement, they said that something happened on the final lap where the car went into a different mode for its own reasons. I don't know why. And it overconsumed the power that it had because they had the same power as the cars around them by 2.2%, I think they said. And that would have been enough to get them over the line. But for some reason, something happened on that final lap where the car massively overconsumed on energy. And it meant that when they entered the last sector, they got no power left. It was almost like it went into the final, like, lunge it over the line mode, you know, give it all the beans, so to speak. And it happened too soon. So when they got to the final sector, they got no power left, no performance. So Mortara had to lift and coast, and then over the line, he had no choice. He either came out the last corner and just stopped because he got no energy left, or he cheekily drove it over the line and hoped no one noticed. And unfortunately, he cheekily drove it over the line and hoped no one noticed and was promptly disqualified from the race afterwards. But you're better off finishing sixth and arguing the toss than just stopping on the last corner. And, you know, potential to get rear-ended if there's a car also running out of power and someone trying to weave round it. So Mortara made the right choice in that decision. You know, you're not scoring points anyway in that situation, are you? If you're going to have to just stop on track, then, yeah, you know, you've blown it. But, yeah, he elected to cross the line and then argue the toss afterwards, citing a technical issue with the car. But the rules are the rules. We know that fully. So the Mahindra looks to have the pace now. You know, it looked good. Just an unfortunate software issue, vehicle issue on that final lap meant the car overconsumed. So they need to study and understand that and work out where it went wrong, because that cost them 8 points and would have put them ninth in the standings nicely. A couple of points ahead of Apt at that point and a few points ahead of ERT at that point as well. So, yeah, a lot of points went begging there. Eight went begging at that situation. But as it is, I think it's encouraging. These last couple of races, I think, you know, there's maybe been, well, there's definitely 8 there, isn't there? And then if you didn't have the incident with Degrassi taking out Mortara and De Vries, that could have been a 9th and 10th, could have been 3 points there. So there could be on 11 or 12 points now, something like that. So there's encouragement there, there's signs of progress, considering they've been looking like not scoring any at all. They're disappointed now that they're having big points taken away from them. So, yeah, encouraging signs. Mortara's getting in the middle of row 5 anyway. Great qualifying effort, getting himself into P3. And, of course, a great race to stay inside the top 10 and to cross the line in P6, despite the issue and getting chucked out, is a mighty effort. But, unfortunately, a maximum retirement can get is 5. That's exactly what Mortara is getting. 5 to Mortara. So, everything, guys, those were the runners and riders of the Tokyo E-Prix. Let me know down below in the comment section, did I score any drivers too high, any too low? The updated standings with the scores I've just awarded are on the screen now for you to take a look at. Have a look and see where your favourite driver is. Are you happy with their performance this weekend? I'm chuffed for Ollie Rowland, I've got to be honest. At Nissan's home race, in that special livery, pole position and a podium was fantastic. I'm chuffed for Gunter. I'm chuffed for Niko Muller. I'm chuffed for Sete Camera. There's so many happy feel-good stories up and down the field this weekend, but unfortunately there's some bad news stories as well lower down the field as well. Most notably Degrassi was probably my most disappointing one this race. But yeah, as always, let me know in the comment section below what you thought of the race, and do you think it was a good return to Tokyo? Do you think it was a nice debut, a good debut for the circuit? Did you like the circuit as well? A massive thanks as always goes out to Dan of Mushy Gaming for providing me with the scoreboard that you see on your screen as we talked about it. Without him, this series would be more pointless than it already is. So I will see you all again in a couple of weeks' time as we go to, is it Misano, Italy next for a double header? I think it is. I might be wrong though. Or is it Monaco? Or is it... I don't know. I get confused. But either way, I'll see you soon in a couple of weeks for the Formula E. And of course, I will see you again next week again for the Formula 1 if you're interested in that, because they're at Japan as well. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. And as always, much love.